And the next topic it is in relating to the tax invoice, credit and debit note. Tax invoice, credit and debit note. There is a small amendment in relating to the issue of the e-invoice. Threshold limit for e-invoice reduced to 5 crores. E-invoice. So with effective from 1st October 2020, e-invoice was made mandatory for all registered business persons with an aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 2017-18 onwards greater than 500 crores for issue of all business to business supplies. Right? For all B2B supplies, it is the responsibility of the registered persons whose aggregate turnover exceeds 500 crores. They have to issue e-invoice. They have to issue e-invoice. Such 500 crores of aggregate turnover reduced to 100 crores and it became to 20 crores and again it became to 110 crores. Now such limit has been reduced to 5 crores. So with effective from 1st August 2023, such limit has been reduced to 5 crores. Thus, e-invoice has been made mandatory for all registered business persons with an aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 2017-18 onwards greater than 5 crores. Are you clear? Suppose taking an example. Yeah. Suppose in the preceding financial years from 2017-18 onwards, a person whose aggregate turnover was 100 crores, 50 crores, 20 crores, etc. might be earlier his aggregate turnover not exceeding the threshold limit as specified in the e-invoice, so that he never complied with the provisions of the e-invoice earlier. Now 2023 onwards, 2023, that is with effective from 10th May 2023. With effective from 10th May 2023, he has to ensure in the preceding 4 financial years, that is 17-18 onwards, not the 4, 6 financial years. Within the preceding 6 financial years, that is from 2017-18 onwards, in any financial year, if his aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crores, then with effective from this date, he has to comply with the provisions of the e-invoice. Are you clear? Let me explain. Threshold limit for e-invoice. Threshold limit for e-invoice. Threshold limit for e-invoice with effective from 10th May 2023. Right, threshold limit reduced to 5 crores. If registered person aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crores in any financial year from 2017-18 onwards, then such registered person has to comply with the e-invoice. There is a separate portal for generating of e-invoice, right? So e-invoice 1gst.government.in. Right, here you have to log in and you have to generate invoice reference number. For every invoice for B2B supplies, you have to upload the invoice and the system will provide an invoice reference number, and only such invoice has to be supplied to the recipients. That is the concept of the invoice, and the students are generally presuming that e-invoice means a soft copy or an invoice which is sent through WhatsApp or Gmail, etc. No, it is not the e-invoice. A soft copy of invoice is not the e-invoice. E-invoice means an invoice which is uploaded in the invoice return portal and getting invoice reference number, and this is the invoice portal, e-invoice portal. Here it is a responsibility of the supplier to upload the invoice, and the system will grant invoice reference number. System or website will affix an invoice reference number, that is called e-invoice. Are you clear? Right. So here, if the registered person aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crores in any financial year from 2017-18 onwards, so that let us assume up to 10th May 2023, his aggregate turnovers might be 100 crore, 70 crores, 30 crores, etc. On those days, for issue of the e-invoice, higher limit was specified, that is 500 crore, 100 crores, like that, right? Might be such criteria not satisfied, so that the registered person never complied with the provisions of the e-invoice. But with effect from 10th May 2023, he has to ensure in the preceding financial year, that is from 2017-18 onwards, whether his aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crores. Then with effect from 10th May 2023, he has to comply with the provisions of e-invoice. Are you clear? And the next one, yeah, applicability of the e-invoices to the e-invoicing to the government departments, public sector undertakings, etc., registered solely for the purpose of deduction of tax at source as per the provisions of section 51. Now section 51, TDS provisions, right? TDS provisions. Suppose where a person is a registered person, he made supplies greater than or equal to 2.5 lakhs in an financial year in an aggregate to the central government, state government or local authority or government agencies, public sector undertakings and government notified persons. And while making the payment, it is the responsibility of the recipient, right? The registered person is the supplier and these government officials will become recipient, right? They will reduce TDS at the rate of 2%, right? In case of the IGST 2%, in case of the CGST 1%, SGST 1%, right? CGST 1% plus SGST 1%. In case of the IGST 2%. Is it clear now? Suppose take an example, value of supply is 10 lakhs. And CGST, let us assume 9%, SGST at the rate of 9%. In such a situation, it will be 90,000 and 90,000. Totally, it is the responsibility of the recipient to make the payment of 11,80,000. But before making the payment of 11,80,000, less TDS. CGST 1%, SGST 1%. How much? 10 lakhs into 1%, which will be 10,000. And SGST 10,000. So only 11,60,000 rupees has to be paid by the government agencies. When they are making 11,60,000 rupees of payment, now the supplier will ask, sir, actually I have to get the 11,80,000 rupees. No. Now the recipient will say, yes sir, you are eligible to get the payment of 11,80,000. But here the recipient being a specified person, I am liable for reducing of TDS at the rate of the 2%. And again, whatever the amount of TDS reduced, we will file a return called which is GSTR 8, and the due date for filing of the GSTR 8, it is 10th of the following month. On filing of the GSTR 8 and whatever the TDS amount reduced, such amount will be added into the electronic cash ledger. Are you clear? This is the provision of section 52, section 51 TDS, and there is no any amendment, just this is the provision as we discussed in the classroom, right? Now what is an amendment? Now the doubt arises, sir, where a registered person making supplies to the persons who are liable for reducing of TDS, these people are registered only for the purpose of reducing TDS. Registered only for TDS purpose. Now the question, whether e-invoice provisions are applicable. Actually, e-invoice provisions applicable in case of the business to business supplies, right? Now, these government officials are registered only for the purpose of reducing of the TDS. They don't have any business, but still whether a registered person has to issue any e-invoice, that is the question, right? Now the department given a clarification that e-invoice has to be issued. Now this is the clarification. Are you clear? Where a supplier, a registered person making supplies to the CG, SGR, local authority, government agency, public sector undertaking, government notified persons, who is liable, who is registered for reducing of the TDS, even in such a situation, it is the responsibility of the supplier to issue e-invoice, liable for issue of e-invoice. Are you clear with this? So this is the second situation. Right, only these two amendments, only these two situations has been notified, or the recent amendment in the chapter of the tax invoice, credit and debit note. And the next chapter, the next amendment, payment of tax, clarification on charging of interest under section 50 subsection 3 in case of wrong availment of IGST credit and reversal thereof. Clarification on charging of interest under section 50 subsection 3 in case of wrong availment of IGST credit and reversal thereof. First of all, as you know that if there is a delay in payment of the tax, the registered person is liable for payment of the interest at the rate of 18%. In the same way, if there is an excess availment of the ITC, he is liable for, suppose at the time of the reversal, he is liable for payment of the interest at the rate of 18%. So what is the concept of the wrongly availment of ITC and reversal thereof, and the manner of computation of the interest we will discuss elaborately. For this purpose, first of all, let me take a practical example for this, right? So the next chapter, it is payment of tax. And what's the previous chapter? Okay. Tax invoice, debit and credit note. Okay. Now this is the one of the practical example. Excess availment of IGST credit and reversal thereof. Interest computation. Suppose taken an example, particulars IGST, CGST and SGST. Opening balance of ITC. Current opening balance of ITC. This is opening balance of ITC, input tax credit. Let us assume 10 lakhs, 4 lakhs and 4 lakhs. And next, current tax period ITC 6 lakhs, 2 lakhs, 2 lakhs. Total balance of ITC became 1666. Now, out of this 6 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees of ITC wrongly availed. Suppose such 3 lakh rupees is a blocked credit, but still, with or without the knowledge, such 3 lakh rupees has been added to the input tax credit ledger. Right, total credit became 16 lakhs. IGST credit 16, CGST credit 6 and SGST credit 6. Now for this month, suppose taken an example, this is the month of the, let us assume June. This is the concept taken, this is the situation which is in the month of the June, right? So for the month of the June, we have to file the return on 20th July. So in 20th July, the computation is like this. And input tax credit utilized again is the tax liability. How much? 9 lakhs, 4 lakhs and 4 lakhs. The remaining closing balance is 7222, right? Now in this situation, the assessee availed 3 lakh rupees of IGST. Wrongly availed ITC 3 lakhs. Whether registered person is liable for payment of any interest? That is a question. 3 lakh rupees wrongly utilized ITC. Wrongly utilized. Wrongly availed. Availment is different from the utilization. Availment means adding balance to the electronic credit ledger. Utilization means set off against liability register. Set off against liability register. When you are using input tax credit against the liability, that is the concept of the utilization. When you are adding balance to the electronic credit ledger, just it is an availment. Availment is not the default. Availment is not the big deal, but the utilization. Utilization, right? Okay, anyway, here just we availed 3 lakh rupees of ITC, 3 lakhs rupees of ITC, wrongly availed, right? Now, in this month, we have a closing balance of 7 lakhs, right? Whether assessee is liable for payment of any interest here? No. Reason, he might be wrongly availed but not utilized. 3 lakhs might be added to the electronic credit ledger, but it is not utilized. Reason, still he have a closing balance of 7 lakhs, which is more than wrongly availed, which is more than wrongly availed, so that no interest need to be paid. Now, suppose next month, for July month, we have to file the return on 20th August, right? Now, the same situation, current tax period, closing balance nothing but it will become opening balance now. Next, current tax period, ITC, let us assume 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs and 3 lakhs. Thereby total balance became 9 lakhs, 5 lakhs and 5 lakhs, right? Less ITC utilized against tax liability. ITC utilized. Now here 7 lakhs 50,000 rupees of IGST liability and 3 lakhs. Now 1 lakh 50,000, 2 lakhs and 2 lakhs. This is the closing balance, right? This is the closing balance. Now again, ITC wrongly availed is in the month of the June, right? How much wrongly availed? 3 lakhs. Now what is the closing balance? Only 1 lakh 50,000. Now you may argue, sir, there is a closing balance of 1 lakh 50,000 rupees of IGST credit. That means wrongly availed credit has been utilized. Wrongly availed it is 3 lakhs. Wrongly availed. Wrongly availed 3 lakhs. Now what is the closing balance? 1.5 lakhs. That means 1.5 lakhs wrongly availed and utilized. Is it? Wrongly availed and utilized. The remaining amount of 1.5 lakhs, right? So that on which he is liable for payment of the interest. Your argument might be right, but you have to consider what is an excess credit of CGST and SGST. Reason, the excess credit of CGST and SGST can be used for IGST liability. Now in this situation, you have to consider the credit balance of 1.5 lakhs plus 2 lakhs plus 2 lakhs, which is 5.5 lakhs. How much of wrongly availed? Wrongly availed is 3 lakhs, but the closing balance it is 5.5 lakhs. So that wrongly availed is less than the closing balance. This is the closing balance. Wrongly availed is 3 lakhs. Still we have a balance of 5.5 lakhs. That is so that there is no concept of wrongly utilization. There may be a wrongly availed, but there is no concept of wrongly utilization. Reason, we have a still excess credit of 5.5 lakhs. So that still no interest on IGST. No interest on IGST. So then interest on IGST will attract for this wrongly availment of ITC. Here 3 lakh rupees of ITC wrongly availed, no? When interest will be added or when interest will be levied. See here, the wrongly availed amount is 3 lakhs, no? When total ITC, that is IGST plus CGST plus SGST. Let us assume 2 lakhs. Now in this situation, wrongly availed ITC is more than total ITC. What is the amount of wrongly availed? 3 lakhs. What is the amount of the total ITC? 2 lakhs. Now the registered person has to pay interest on only 1 lakh. Reason, wrongly availed minus closing balance 2 lakhs. So that wrongly availed and utilized, wrongly availed and utilized amount is only 1 lakh, no, on which the registered person is liable for payment of the interest, and that to pay interest on 1 lakh from the date when total ITC below to the amount of wrongly utilized. So pay interest on 1 lakh from the date when total ITC below to the amount of wrongly utilized. So when total ITC became below to the 3 lakhs, reason 3 lakh rupees is the wrongly utilized, no. So when total balance of ITC became below to the 3 lakhs, from that date onwards, the registered person is liable for interest, but not from the date of wrongly availed, not from this date, not from the date of ITC wrongly availed, from the date when the total ITC became below to the amount of wrongly utilized. Are you clear? From that date onwards, the registered person is liable for payment of the interest. Are you clear with this? I hope with this practical example easily you can understand. Simple, let me say. Otherwise, in the second way, sir, IGST credit wrongly availed. Please remember, no interest. Reason, wrongly availed. Sir, in the near future utilized also. Even might be utilized. You have to ensure whether total ITC is more than wrongly availed ITC. Suppose take an example, ITC wrongly availed, it is 4 lakhs, right? Total ITC is more than wrongly availed ITC. Suppose total ITC is, let us assume, 9 lakhs, right? And what is the amount of the wrongly availed? 4 lakhs, right? In this situation, answer yes. Total ITC more than wrongly availed ITC. That is, total ITC is amount 9 lakhs and wrongly availed 4 lakhs. In such a situation, no interest. Suppose where the total ITC less than wrongly availed ITC. That is, let us assume the total ITC is only 2.5 lakhs, which is less than 4 lakhs. Now, pay interest on wrongly availed and utilized. That is only on 1.5 lakhs. Interest only on 1.5 lakhs. That too from the date when such amount, that is total ITC, became below to the 4 lakhs, not from the date of wrongly availed. I hope you are able to understand the provision. Otherwise, please pause the video and go through the provision and again revise the concept once. Once you revise, easily you can understand. I hope with this practical example, easily you can understand, right? My intention. So that this is an amendment which is given in the chapter of the payment of tax. One and only the amendment. That is the concept given elaborately, right? The next one. And the next amendment, TDS, tax deduction at source and collection of tax at source, TDS and TCS. The next chapter, it is TDS and TCS. TDS and TCS. Now, what is an amendment in this chapter? Actually, this is the simple amendment. Already we discussed, but let me go through once. Details of TCS furnished by the e-commerce operator to be made available electronically only to the registered suppliers. Details of TCS furnished by the e-commerce operator to be made available electronically to only registered suppliers. What is the reason? We discussed in the chapter of the registration. The person who is supplying goods or services through e-commerce operator and his aggregate turnover does not exceed threshold limit, no need to obtain registration. When the supplier who is making supplies through e-commerce operator, when he is not liable for registration, no need to reduce TCS. Are you clear? In such a situation, e-commerce operator is liable for reducing of TCS only in relating to the registered persons. So thereby the amendment, the details of tax collected at source under section 52 subsection 1 furnished by the e-commerce operator shall be made available electronically to each registered supplier. To each registered supplier. Let me explain. E-commerce operator has to make available TCS information only to the registered persons who supplying through ECO. See here, now this is the person who is a e-commerce operator, and these peoples are the small business persons who are the suppliers, right? They are making supplies through e-commerce operator to the customers or public, right? In this situation, actually what will happen? The customer will make the payment to the ECO, and ECO, while making the payment, it is the responsibility of the ECO to reduce TCS at the rate of 1%. In case of the CGST at the rate of 0.5 plus in case of the SGST at the rate of 0.5%. Totally 1% has to be reduced. Suppose taking an example where a supplier selling a good worth of 1 lakh, on which let us assume GST at the rate of 18%, which will be 18,000. Totally 1,18,000 paid by the customer to the ECO. Now, while making payment by the ECO to the supplier, what he will do? Less TCS at the rate of 1%, which will be 1,000. Only 1,17,000 rupees will be paid to the supplier. Now the supplier will ask, sir, actually I am eligible to get 1,18,000 now. 1,18,000. Now e-commerce operator will say, sir, no need to think about it. We are going to file a return, right? On filing of the return, such amount will be credited to the electronic cash ledger. Electronic cash ledger, right? In such a manner, the e-commerce operator will give an answer to the supplier. Whatever the amount of TCS reduced by the ECO, it will be added to the electronic cash ledger of the supplier. Now the question it is, whether e-commerce operator is liable for reducing of TCS, whether supplier may be a registered or unregistered. This is the question. Now, as we discussed in section 24, that is in the registration chapter, the person who is unregistered making supplies through e-commerce operator Here no TCS. That means e-commerce operator has to reduce the TCS only for registered persons. So automatically he will provide the details to the suppliers who are registered. Who are registered. Are you clear? So e-commerce operator will reduce the TCS only in relating to the registered persons. Now come to the amendment. See here, the details of tax collected at source under section 52 subsection 1 furnished by the e-commerce operator shall be made available electronically to each of the registered supplier on the GST common portal after filing of the form GSTR 8 for claiming the amount of tax collected at source, and which will be credited to the electronic cash ledger. Are you clear? In this situation, you have to understand to each of the registered supplier. In relating to the unregistered person, no need to reduce TCS. Are you clear? And one small mistake here, GSTR 8 TCS, and in the previous provisions we discussed where it is TDS, and there also we discussed like as a GSTR 8, right? Yeah, it is not the GSTR 8, it is GSTR 7. Yeah. GSTR 7. Okay. TDS GSTR 7 and TCS GSTR 8. And due date for filing of the both returns 10th of the following month. Are you clear? So TDS and TCS provisions also be over. Please pause the video and go through once. And next, the last chapter, we are going to start with the chapter of returns. But before that, please go through once.